Hi family, thanks for watching. I'm just taking a break for a second in the greenhouse. My child was ever so kind to share his cold with me, so my voice probably sounds off. I've been promising that we would make a 1-year review video of our polycarbonate greenhouse that we got from online. I don't remember how to pronounce the proper name of it, of this particular version. But I think overall we've been fairly satisfied with it. However, I would share that A, it's not for everyone, and B, there are probably about like 5 necessary things that we didn't anticipate that you have to do when you get a greenhouse like this. I guess you call them hidden fees, essentially.
There are basically 5 necessary upgrades to get your greenhouse up and running that we will go over in this video.
You know, as hard as it is to believe, 2 weeks ago I was suffering from heat stroke because it was 109, which I think is like 42 degrees Celsius, and now it's just above freezing. It's crazy. But it also means that I have to start getting the greenhouse ready and to do what we originally intended for it, which is keep the frost off our plants. Last weekend, thankfully, before it got too cold like it is right now, I had the opportunity to rinse and clean out the greenhouse. Got in here with the hose and just kind of scrubbed down all the walls. Before I jump too far into like the 5 necessary upgrades, just to give you a bit of history about this greenhouse, we were kind of going back and forth about using milled wood we had and building our own and trying to like get corrugated plastic roofing materials, but we didn't exactly have the know-how, and we price assessed what more materials we would need to do it ourselves with all the material we had, and we realized it was about the same price as it was to buy this. So we went ahead and made a decision to buy this instead, because the beautiful thing about it is it came with all the instruction plans. You didn't have to kind of sort that stuff out yourself, and you could, in theory, put it up in a day. Of course, we picked a hot weekend to do it, put it all up, and posted it online, and people have been asking us since how we have found it. I wouldn't go so far as to say I love it, but I definitely like it. We've had to do a lot to tweak it to make it usable for our needs. If you are just thinking about getting a greenhouse, definitely think about what you are intending to use it for. Another thing too that you should really think about is, again, these 5 things that are gonna be necessary purchases. The cost of the greenhouse for us at the time was $450, American dollars of course. The additional purchases we've made have well exceeded that. Just because the price tag seems affordable, there are other things to consider that may or may not change your mind. So let me go through those 5 things right now. So I think the first thing that is essential upgrade for your polycarbonate prefab greenhouse is improving the overall structure. Point in case being the base. Now these polycarbonate prefab greenhouses are really ideal in the sense that they can be shipped to your home. They're very inexpensive and lightweight. Because they are lightweight, it is easy for them to fly away on you. And basically our solution to anchoring the greenhouse was twofold. A was to mount it to pressure treated wood. That would help elevate the whole thing so that us who are very tall people could have some headroom in here. And the second was to buy these actual anchors. This bad boy has got these giant eyelet screws driven down into the ground and is tied to them. So it's pretty stable. Made everything square before we did that. But agreeably, that was like an additional $200 between these anchors, which I think were about 40, and the pressure treated wood, and these plates that we screwed to both to connect them. And of course, what you use to anchor your building will really depend on what weather is like where you live. Now, we never bothered putting the extra support beams because we don't usually get heavy snowfall here. If you do get heavy snowfall here, this would be a continuation of extra support. You can put wood support beams between the panels to reinforce them should you get a heavy snowfall. Now, the second necessary upgrade is sealant. Now, to be fair, the instruction manuals for this particular model did actually specifically state that you should probably be buying anchors like I mentioned in one, and you should probably be buying sealant like I am now mentioning. The thing though is they just suggested clear silicone caulking sealant, which we found was not sufficient enough. No matter what we did, we couldn't get that sealant to hold and keep the water out until we found this beautiful stuff, which is RV sealant tape. And it has done a marvelous job. And you know, a little rain isn't a big deal, but that wasn't our problem. We were getting a lot of rain. The entire walls would be like those decorative waterfalls in like those fancy restaurants where the wall is the waterfall. I did lose a couple plants because it was too wet and cold in here, but the sealant tape really made a huge difference. You still need the silicone where the polycarbonate board meets the frame, but for specifically the roof ridges, you want something a little stronger. 4 inches, hey! And it cost about, I want to say $30. The silicone that we put on all the edges, I can't remember if we went through 2 or 3 tubes, but I think that was $14 a pack. Now, my number 3 necessary upgrade suggestion is one of my favorites, and I actually think it could work for all greenhouses, not just these prefab ones. I guess in a way, all of these recommendations could apply to greenhouses. Anyway, my 3rd favorite is the automatic beeswax window. Let me show you. So right now it is too cold in here for this thing to open up, but this thing is a beauty. We stumbled upon it from YouTube. We got it on Amazon. It is a little bit cumbersome to install. However, we were getting ready to go on holiday and had been manually opening this window and closing it every day. And we were worried about those who were watching after our home while we were gone having to do that because they would have to come to our house twice a day, and we wanted to make it easier on them. I don't fully understand the mechanics of how this thing works. I know the way the springs are and such makes a huge difference, but there is beeswax in this cylinder. And as it's cold, the beeswax hardens and the window contracts and closes itself. But when the weather heats up, the beeswax melts and the springs activate and let this window pop open. So we no longer have to come in and out every day, you know, when the weather is like 30 degrees at night or 0 degrees Celsius, and then during the day it's like 60, 10. I love it to bits. It's set it and forget it, and it makes your life so much easier. I think it was about $40 to $50 when I purchased it. So number 4 is ironic because there are none in here. That is shelving. That's because of how we like to use the space. Now, shelving's really going to depend on what you use this greenhouse for. If you use it for some to just keep the frost off of your plants, then basically you could probably get away maybe like a bench to maximize the area that you can use to put plants in. I actually wouldn't even recommend getting a greenhouse this size. I would recommend getting one of those like little small ones that you can put the plants in and out of, because it'll be so much easier. But we wanted kind of a dual purpose. We wanted to be able to keep our plants that are frost sensitive protected during the winter, and then we also wanted to use the space for seedlings. Now, we don't do any potting or any of that kind of stuff in the greenhouse. We do all that outside the greenhouse, mostly because we're too tall to do it in here and this space is a little small. You'll see a lot of greenhouses where like they put their cool little potting bench in the back, and then they'll have like rows of shelves with all their plants on it, which I guess is an ideal and neat if you live in an area where it's always cold, but we get fluctuations. When it's really, really hot, we don't want to be working in here. So I just put my potting bench outside. Shelving is deceptively expensive. If you're building it yourself, you still have to buy the timber and lumber. I bought this bamboo rack from the store. It was $60. It's supposed to be nice because it could fold up and easily be taken in and out. I don't think it's worth that cut price because you can take like old wood furniture, paint it so it doesn't mold too badly, and bring it into this space, and that would probably be the cheapest option. The only thing that's kind of a permanent fixture in here is our lemon tree, which is just starting to turn yellow. Yay! So 5 is all about regulating the temperature in here. During the winters, this place will get incredibly cold, colder than it is outside. And during the summer, it'll get incredibly hot, hotter than it is outside. So it will dramatically swing into the different realms. So if you're like us and you're keeping a plant in there all year long, you got to think about how you're going to handle it. We did a lot of research about kind of off-grid or passive heating methods, including like getting buckets of water in here. But the 10-gallon buckets we used last year did nothing. The garbage can of basically compost did nothing. So we have these giant barrels that I'm going to fill with water. I'm not banking on this working, but I'll buy one of those little kits like we did for the chicken coop that will turn this into a spigot so that I can drain it, because agreeably moving this full of water will be impossible. One idea that I did get from YouTube that I'm kind of excited to try is getting one of those aquarium heaters for like tropical fish and dropping it in here for one of the bigger drums, but those run off of electricity. I eventually decided to build a solar system because I want to be able to have power out here. I want to be able to have my heating mats in the winter working. I want to be able to have my fan going all the time. I don't want to be doing this, checking on it every day. There are loads of options online. We bought one of these vents that you have to cut out and mount. I bought a DC powered fan with an included monitor that will kick on when it hits a certain temperature or a certain humidity degree. But of course, I don't want extension cords running throughout my yard. This fan is connected here to this cord, which goes underneath the greenhouse and connects to here to my very high-tech filing cabinet yeah, that someone was throwing away. My solar system in here. Is it going? Yeah. So it's got ventilation. It's got a fan that's running in there. 2 run the fan, but you know, inverters, they can't get hot. And then I have the solar panel out here charging it. I think that all of the parts together probably cost me somewhere around $300, maybe even $400. Like I said, I hadn't had much success with the passive options. The solar system was definitely a luxury add. Another thing we had was this shade cloth, which I just threw over the whole greenhouse. I probably should have mounted it to the tree over here and put a couple poles in the ground and let it offset from the greenhouse. If you can give a minimum of 3 inches between the shade cloth and the greenhouse, you can get the maximum cooling. Number 5's upgrade really kind of depends on where you live and what your expectations of use for your greenhouse is. For some, maybe just getting this is enough. This shade cloth costs something like $50. The fan probably was $80. That blue barrel that we've got, you know, that was another $50 purchase when you consider the adapter that we'll get for it eventually as well. You can end up spending more money on keeping this thing regulated temperature wise than you actually spent on the greenhouse itself. So it's definitely something to think about in advance of how you want to use the space and what your requirements for it are. I don't think it would have changed our minds because ultimately it was fairly simple to assemble, and with some necessary modifications, it has become quite robust and versatile for our needs. So there you have it. Please feel free to leave comments. Let us know if this review was helpful or if there's anything specific that you want us to review in the future. My favorite upgrade is by far the beeswax automatic window vent. not having to come out here every day to open and close that thing is so wonderful. If you've made it this far to the end of the video and you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time. Watch me ramble on about things. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.